where FDN got started was that 10 years that I spent running thousands of labs on thousands of people. And as I said, you know what came next. I started teaching. What are you going to say? And I say, you tell them, I resolve metabolic chaos. That's what I do for a living. I help people. I help people resolve metabolic chaos, which is it's everything that's really wrong with you, besides your pain source or whatever some doctor told you was your diagnosis. We don't like diagnosis. We like knowing what's really wrong, and so that's what we tell people.
Welcome to Beyond the Pain, the podcast that explores what it really takes to break free from chronic pain and reclaim your life. I'm your host, Lee Brandon, and someone who's spent over 2 decades helping people get to the root cause of pain that no one else could explain. Whether you're dealing with long-term back issues, joint pain, nerve discomfort, or mysterious symptoms that just won't go away, this show is here to help you go deeper. Because beyond the pain, there's clarity, strength, and power waiting for you. Each week, we'll uncover the physical, emotional, biochemical, and energetic causes of pain and how to transform them. Let's dive deep into this week's episode. Before I introduce today's guest, I just want to take a moment to mention my upcoming book, Beyond the Pain, and this will be launching in July. This book has been produced based on decades of working with people in pain and from seeing how often persistent pain is misunderstood, oversimplified, or treated as though it's only about the part of the body that hurts. But pain is rarely that simple. In Beyond the Pain, I explore pain from a whole person perspective, looking at how the body, mind, emotions, lifestyle, nutrition, stress, movement, sleep, and environment can all play a role in why pain persists and what may be needed to begin moving beyond it. So if you've been living with chronic pain or know someone who is, and you'd like to be one of the first to hear when the book is released, you can join the waiting list at bodycheck.co.uk/book-waitlist. Now, that idea of looking beyond the obvious is very much at the center of today's episode. Because when someone is in pain, the natural tendency is to focus on the painful area. If your back hurts, you focus on your back. If your shoulder hurts, you focus on your shoulder. If your knee hurts, you focus on your knee. And of course, that makes sense. But what if the painful area is only one part of a much bigger picture? What if pain is being influenced by the state of your metabolism, your stress response, your digestive system, your sleep, your nutritional status, your inflammation levels, or your ability to repair and recover? My guest this week is Reed Davis, founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, and in this conversation we explore the concept of metabolic chaos. Reed explains how the body can become overwhelmed when too many systems are under stress at the same time, and why symptoms such as pain, fatigue, poor digestion, hormonal imbalance, inflammation, skin issues, weight gain, and low mood may not be separate problems, but signs of a deeper pattern. We discuss why nutrition matters in pain recovery, not because food necessarily caused the original injury, but because the body needs the raw materials to heal. We also talk about stress, cortisol, gut health, detoxification, movement, sleep, and why simply chasing symptoms often fails to create lasting change. So if you're living with chronic pain and you feel stuck, frustrated, or as though you're doing all the right things but still not getting better, this episode may help you ask a different question. Not just how do I get rid of this pain, but what is my body trying to show me and what does it need in order to heal? That's what we explore in this week's conversation with Reed Davis. Reed, welcome back onto the show. It's great to have you here.
Lee, thanks so much for having me. It's been a while, but it's always been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always good. It's always good talking to you, Reed. So, to begin with, can you tell us a little bit about your background? What led you to found FDN, and maybe tell us a little bit about what that is for people that don't know what that is, and how that shaped your journey, and the way that you think about chronic pain, nutrition, and all the deeper drivers of ill health.
Oh, I could tell you a lot. I'll try to keep it short and say that, interestingly enough, I went from environmental law, saving the whole planet, to working with people for a number of reasons. Back in 1999, um, in short, I was kind of getting sick of the California ferry shrimp and hearing about these kind of environmental things. I loved it at first, and I loved the studies, but then a friend of mine's dad, who everyone said he was perfectly healthy. He was perfectly healthy. He drops dead. And I was very close to this, really my best friend's dad. We are close. And I thought, nah, he couldn't have been perfectly healthy. No, perfectly healthy people don't drop dead. Common sense to me. And then at the same time, Lee, I think you know this, um, my um, my high school athlete's son, who was a great athlete, that's not his dad talking. That's what everyone knew about my son, Jason. And so I was taking him into this chiropractic wellness center regularly for regular checkups and visits. Now, he got 7 varsity letters in 4 different sports. That's a big thing here. And, but I got a new career because the more I talked to the doctors at this wellness center, which was largely basic chiropractic and acupuncture and um, some body work stuff, and the more I wanted to work there. And I learned about innate intelligence and how the body really works. And I hadn't really been to the doctor myself, so I didn't know how bad the medical system was. But I just wanted to. So I talked myself into a job there, mostly in management. Like sales and marketing and that. 'Cause I was good at that. And man, did it change my life. I mean, I just literally quit one job, went to work here, started trying to build the business. But the owner asked me, 'cause I was very interested, if I wanted to take a nutrition course and that she was doing. And I said, yeah, I guess so. And she said, well, you can work on the patients here in between your classes. So you'll get something hardly anyone gets, and I jumped on that opportunity. So as I studied nutrition, became a natural for what came next, running all the labs and really trying to help people. But that clinic was based in pain. So I thought, to your point, to your topic today, that everyone was coming in for pain, neck, back, whatever. They hurt themselves, car accidents, and a lot of sports injuries, a lot of people being overworked in the gym. They're working too hard in the gym, hurting themselves. But they came in for that. But it turned out that they all had other problems too, which is what I was there for. I wasn't the chiropractor. I wasn't even a doctor. So I'll just finish by saying, I had an awful lot to learn, but I had nothing to unlearn. And I was in charge. I ended up running the whole place and studying anatomy and physiology and biochemistry. So anyway, 10 years I worked there. And where FDN got started was that 10 years that I spent running thousands of labs on thousands of people. And as I said, you know what came next. I started teaching.
So, just for the audience, can you just explain briefly what FDN actually is?
Yeah, I've been teaching my graduates. I just did 2 interviews this morning already. I interview every graduate, goes through my 10-month program. And it's self-paced. You could do it shorter, or some people take longer. But it's what I learned in that 10 years, I can teach you in 10 months. And it's all the lab work, the saliva testing, urine testing, stool testing, blood testing. It's very in depth. It's very science based. It's how to interpret these labs for an individual. and then set them on the right path. And that, of course, is our famous duress for health success: diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. It's very systematized, kind of like check. It's all based on systems that are proven to work. So so that's how you do FDN. You run labs and you get people to walk a narrower path than they've been on. And they might be in pain, so they're seeing chiropractic and doing the physical fitness stuff. But they also have tiredness and fatigue, and they're overweight, and they're depressed, and they're foggy thinking, and they have bad skin and bad digestion, and the story, right? Chronic stress related downward spirals that they're caught in. So that's our job. And that's how it developed. At the office, I wasn't the chiropractor. Well, you see the chiropractor for that. You see me for um, the investigation or labs into the other problems. And here's what I've been telling my graduates. If someone asks you, what do you do? What are you going to say? And I say, you tell them, I resolve metabolic chaos. That's what I do for a living. I help people. I help people resolve metabolic chaos, which is it's everything that's really wrong with you, besides your pain source or whatever some doctor told you was your diagnosis. We don't like diagnosis. We like knowing what's really wrong, and so that's what we tell people, and it's very true, as you know.
Yeah, and just for the audience, if they're wondering what FDN stands for, it's Functional Diagnostic Nutrition.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just a name I had to come up with when I taught my first class in 2008. It's very functional. It's diagnostic in nature because we use labs, but it's not medical diagnosis. But don't be confused. And it's also, I was a nutritionist, so I called it nutrition, but it's way beyond that. We use all kinds of lifestyle protocol on top of the nutrition to help resolve metabolic chaos.
yeah, yeah, and for me as well, the thing that having gone through your training, the thing that you're always pushing is getting to the root cause of the problem, not just treating the symptoms, which often doesn't get the job done. But another
Yeah,
another couple another couple of
right.
things that really stands out to me from doing your training is you know you suggest that we think of ourselves as health detectives, right? And we're turning up at a crime scene and we're gathering all the evidence before we decide who the culprit is, so to speak, right? But
Well,
the
yeah, you touched on something very important there.
yeah, yeah. And the other thing that really stands out for me, and this particularly was in my head in 2020, something that I felt was really drummed into me. You do not treat test results, right?
Don't treat the paper. Yeah, so it's very important what you said. We don't treat the paper. We help the person self-treat. So we don't even treat anything really. Um, we educate people on what we found through that investigation. We are like health detectives looking for the root cause. And what I wanted to say about that, Lee, is that's where the phrase metabolic chaos comes in, because as I spent all those years looking for the root cause, I found out that some root causes are very far removed from where the symptoms are. And um, so what we look for are healing opportunities. It's through the lab work you can identify hormone imbalances and immune system problems and digestive problems and liver and detoxification problems. So we run these labs, we find all these healing opportunities. And the thing to, and then we put people on these narrow pathways. You're like, hey, you got to eat right. You got to go to bed on time. You got to exercise. You got to reduce stress, which we help people with all kinds of stress, including pain. That's a big stressor. And then supplementation is also very important. So the idea of root cause, I don't reject at all. I'm always looking for it, but it could be really far removed. It could also be different causal factors, the environment and pain and the way you think, crashing into each other, creating new uh, root causes or causal factor, if you will. So that's why I call it metabolic chaos. I just dropped the phrase root cause, and we resolve metabolic chaos or help people resolve it because it's what works better. It works better. Trying to identify that one root cause is, what if it's not there anymore? A recent paper by the University of California, San Diego, sure they produce a lot of garbage, but one good thing they produced was this paper on the root cause doesn't have to be there. It could have left a long time ago, but the downward spiral that it caused, metabolically speaking, is still ongoing. Some of these things get burned into our metabolic pathways, so it's really interesting, and glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, even the term metabolic imbalance fits as well. It doesn't necessarily have to feel like chaos, right? Just an imbalance will cause dis-ease in the body.
Absolutely. So it could be a hormone imbalance, and stress does weird things to you. Doesn't matter what kind of stress, whether it's pain or the environment, bad air or chemicals, or even again the way you think. And some problems are in the mind and emotions of a person as well. But wherever the stress is coming from, it's going to raise your cortisol and lower your DHA. So your catabolic and anabolic hormones are going to get out of balance. So that's the balance. When you mention balance, I think, yeah, catabolic, anabolic, your body's breaking down. You're getting old before your time. And there's only one way to reverse that, and it's to identify as many stressors as possible to see what's throwing that off. And that's where some of this, again, the detective work comes in. Everyone's an individual. People that can have the same symptoms, they're tired and overweight and can't sleep, whatever it is, but one, it could be mental emotional, another could be pain. Pain will keep you up. I've got plenty and had a lot of sleepless nights and different things. And again, the chemical, remember I started in environmental law. I know about the environment, the chemicals and garbage that we're breathing and being fed and stuff. So it doesn't matter where the stress is coming from. You're going to throw off your catabolic to anabolic balance, and you can measure it. That's the beauty of what we do is you can measure these things, get that cortisol DHEA ratio, and you can, in many cases or most, you can tell, hey, your body's breaking down. And from there, the dominoes begin to fall, whether it's your sex hormones, your immune system, and other things, they will fall, and they'll fall in fairly reliable patterns. And that's what I discovered in that 10 years in the office. I ran thousands of labs on thousands of people. At first, I didn't know what I was doing. I just did a lot of it to learn, and I had great mentorship, of course, some of the people I worked with, but um, more importantly, I think, is the observations I was able to make because of the sheer volume of work I did. More lab testing than any 5 doctors combined back then.
Yeah, yeah. So moving on, obviously in the US, I've heard that you've got new dietary guidelines that have come out recently. So kind of flip the food pyramid on its head, pretty much. Um, from your
Very
perspective,
happy about that, by the way.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But from your perspective, how does that shift relate to inflammation and chronic pain in your view? If you've been living with pain for a while, you've probably felt frustrated, like you're trying lots of things, but nothing really changes. That's because pain rarely comes from one single issue. It's usually biomechanics, nutrition, stress, sleep, lifestyle habits, and your nervous system is all interacting together. When we look at everything as a whole, the pattern becomes clear. If you want help understanding what's driving your pain, you can book a discovery call with me at bodycheck.co.uk. That's bodychek.co.uk/consultation. All right, back to the episode.
Well, two things. First of all, I have to say that it's been a long time coming that someone who actually gave a crap uh, got into a position of power and started taking an honest look at the food pyramid, which was completely captured by industry. So, I don't think it's much different in the UK, the US. You have those who would have monopolies if we let them. And so the food industry has been monopolized by very powerful companies that and people, you might say, who they only want you to eat the garbage they're selling. And so they captured part of the government that regulates these kind of things and is supposed to be overseeing things to the benefit of the people instead of those companies. So I think we finally have someone there who's like-minded in that. And what do we get out of it? All of a sudden the food pyramid's turned upside down. And thank goodness because, they started focusing on protein and more healthy fats and removing some of the stigma around, fat, real good fat, because the old pyramid was pushing seed oils and, high, it was allowing at least, and I think promoting, um, highly refined carbohydrates, things that are just obviously to us really bad for you. But, and I think to a lot of people, but, and look, some people may not wanna change, but the new food pyramid is great. And your second part about the pain, there's, um the body is supposed to heal itself. That's the design. So you don't have to teach any cells or tissues or organs, what their job is. They know it. It's an innate intelligence. Now, wherever you believe that came from, good on you. I got my feelings about that, and I know it's true that the body's designed perfectly. So, how do you heal a torn labrum? Or those are pretty hard, actually. But sore muscles and the aches and pains. And believe me, I have a very well used body, and I've had plenty of them. And to this day, I told you before we started recording that I'm looking at hip surgery from and so. But how do you resolve? How do you get the body to heal? Obviously you can rest it for a little while, but you also have to nurture it. And so, and you might even unfortunately need some doctoring, like surgery and different things. But food is medicine. Doctor, doctor food, right? Isn't it Doctor Food?
It's a diet.
Doctor Diet. Yeah. So, man, you got to start there because what are you doing? You get up every day, you eat three times, at least twice, if not five times, depending on the person and what's right for them. But so you have to nurture. So what you need to heal these areas is vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, antioxidants, trace elements, phytonutrients. The other things that we can are best sourced through um, real food, which is another thing that the came out of the upside down pyramid, a new pyramid, is you just eat real food. Eat real food, and it's really important, regardless of what your problem is. So in terms of pain and healing, rest is good. I think you told me you had a tennis injury on your shoulder. The labrum
Mm,
was torn. What do you do? You
mm.
quit playing tennis for a year. You've got to, can't be stupid about some of this stuff. I had to quit kickboxing and doing jujitsu. I just couldn't. I was in my late 60s. I'm in my 70s now, and your body just won't take it. Continuous stuff. So you got to be smart and you got to nourish your body. And obviously that includes good sleep and, the right kind of exercise. There's rehabilitation. You're an expert in this. So I don't need to tell your audience about rehabilitative exercise. And like I'm actually in a program right now with my Pilates instructor to prepare me for this hip surgery that I'm now, no two ways. It's the last thing to do to try to get out of pain. So I've been doing stem cells and PRP and all the things for 3 years, um, but it's not getting me there. I'm still in pain, so I've got to get my hip, but I'm doing the preliminary exercises that are going to allow that. They do this. It's the least invasive type of hip replacements now, and they move the muscles and everything out of the way. They don't cut anything. They move it all out of the way. I'm not looking forward to it, man, one bit. And then they do what they do with the hip, and then they push it all back together. Well, I'm doing this pre-surgery uh, exercise now, and I'll do the post-surgery, and I will heal it. It will heal. I don't know why I've been such a chicken. The idea of knives, and cutting, and so they got to cut you open somehow to get that new
Mm,
hip.
yeah.
So I was talking to my 95-year-old mother a short time ago and was telling her, "Yeah, I'm kind of scared, Mom. I'm doing I've spent $30,000 on stem cells and this other stuff." And she goes, and she's old, 95. She goes, "Oh, just get it done. The old buggers around here get it done all the time, and they're fine afterwards." So very encouraging, Mother. Thank you.
Mm. Yeah, in terms of the new food guide pyramid, I would imagine, as you were saying, that they're not pushing the ultra processed carbohydrates and the ultra processed oils. So I would imagine, well, I say I would imagine, assuming people follow the guidelines, which I'm a little bit doubtful of, that people will actually change their behaviors. But if they do, I would imagine that people will see less inflammation in the body and they will see less chronic pain.
Absolutely. As far as compliance goes, it's always a big question. But I'm not cynical about it. I think that if you educate people and give them the opportunity, um, they very often will choose better than they've been choosing if they're educated enough. Now, you know, unfortunately, crappy food's cheaper, and you get what you pay for. You're going to pay for crappy food one way or another. And in terms of pain and healing, the seed oils are inflammatory. We know about omega-3, omega-6, omega-9. This is not new, and it's all true. It's not theory, it's science. Some oils are more inflammatory, but the seed oils and things happen to be that way. But if you're doing avocado oil and olive oil and um, saturated fats, me, I'm a meat eater. Don't mind saying it. I'm getting healthy fat. And there's other oils as well. Fish, is very good, has high levels of the right kind of DHA and these kind of things. So yeah, absolutely. Diet can heal you or it can hurt you. Take your pick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. With regards to behavior change, it's a shame that no one does a course on how to change behavior.
Listen, you're a master. I learned a lot actually from you, Lee. And for those of you who don't know, Lee is a graduate of the program, but he was already, a Czech practitioner and lots of things. So he kind of got it under his belt to add to what he already knew. And Lee is a guy who never stops learning, and that's our ilk. We're always looking for the next thing, and then we're hoping that society and government catches up one day, and it looks like there's more consciousness around, like just that food pyramid thing. Higher levels of those that would um, be in the business of helping us to help others. It's getting a little better. I'm seeing some daylight, at least right now. So we want to educate people to make those choices. And I learned from you, Lee, one of the best assessments of getting people to change their commitment level. And I use it to this day. It's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to making these changes? Because they got to make changes and they know it. Well, I'm about a 6 or 7. Sorry, not good enough. And then and because I teach my graduates to say, I only accept 9s or 10s. Because some people you can't get to a 10. They just but 9s are really high level. But if they're a 4 or 5, you can't help them. 'Em. They're not committed enough. You taught me to ask them or just say something like, "Well, 6 isn't bad, 4 is not why aren't you a 0?" And they whatever good reason they give you, "Well, because I really need this and I want it so bad, and, I've heard other people had good success, so I'm not a 0." Good, well, why aren't you a 10? And then the other things that, I won't go into your spiel, but it was very helpful for me to hear your coaching and your, um, sort of addition to that part of it. What I did best was run the labs, make the assessments, physiologically, the anatomy and the biochemistry. I'm really good at that part. And even coming up with the protocol, which is our dress program. So you run the labs and then you design a plan. That's actually the easy part. What you were better at that time was the implementation part. You've been coached up and studied and learned how to. So it's easy to run the labs and design a program. Running the program, that's where the ifs come in,
Mm. Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I was kind of laughing earlier. Um, I'm kind of addressing the audience now, um, because I actually have a course for practitioners via FDN on how to help people actually change their behaviors, because that is the biggest challenge that we have as health professionals. It's not necessarily giving them the right advice; it's actually getting them to do the advice. So I'll make sure the link to that's in the show notes. So
Do that.
if any
And
practitioners are watching or listening, they can always check that out.
yeah, well, again, Lee took the FDN course and has helped us since. And that's how the FDN program and community, we have 5,000 practitioners. It's grown because of the serious people who weren't just shopping for another certificate for their wall, but actually wanted to learn something and apply it. And Lee's one of those who then, to his credit, great credit, turned around and contributed back to it. Hey, Reed, how about this? Yeah, fantastic. And so now it's a very cooperative thing. Very uh, it's it's sourced. It's all group. What do you call it? Group sourcing. Teaching people sign up for the course, and then turn around and are teaching. We have 25 advanced courses now. A lot of them taught by the people who graduated and said, "Hey, I got something to add to this."
Yeah. So my next question for you: why do some people appear to follow a broadly healthy diet yet still continue to struggle with persistent pain? In your view, a common myth I still hear, even from professionals, is that diet has nothing to do with chronic pain. And that's simply not true. Your gut and your immune system influence inflammation, hormones, energy, and yes, pain. If you're eating foods that drive inflammation, it's almost impossible to feel better long term. The pain free plate gives you 7 foods that help settle your system and support lasting relief. You can download it at bodycheck.co.uk. That's bodycheck.co.uk/pain free plate. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
This is where maybe that root cause comes in. I don't always have all the answers, but I kind of know where to look. And we um, can assess, could it be diet, chemistry related? Are they not resting and sleeping properly, which also would obstruct healing? Are they doing the wrong kind of exercise? Are they continually aggravating this kind of a thing? Or is there some unknown hidden stressor that actually um, is where a lot of the work is. There's also supplementation. Remember, to heal, you have to have vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, antioxidants, trace elements. all kinds of stuff that the human body was designed to consume to nourish, and the design's perfect, so it should heal. What's stopping it from healing? And so you actually just identified a big area for our practitioners and yourself and yours. Um, what are it's identifying obstacles to healing, and sometimes creatively, you got to get creative sometimes to um, to overcome them. And if it's something like in with the physical body, like I really trust my physical trainer. I trust her implicitly. If I say, "Oh, I got an owie here, owie there," she tells me what to do. The exercise that will correct that. She knows skeletal, muscular, skeletal, and all the things. She's also a graduate of my program, so she knows a lot about the internal organs and things. But I just trust her. Well, you know, what if it isn't musculoskeletal? What if it's in the mind and emotions of that person? Those
Mm.
obstacles are hard to overcome. Some people won't get better. They're very attached somehow to their ailment, whether it be physical pain or some other thing. And so you got to dig. You got to want to dig. You got to get that person sometimes um, to make some changes that are very uncomfortable. Would you agree with that? Like sometimes
Yeah,
they don't wanna they're very attached to it for some reason.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is getting into what I would call the survival archetypes, as Caroline Mace discusses, and how, there's a thing called secondary gain. So often at a subconscious level, there's actually something to be gained from being in pain. It might be someone hates their job. So at a
Yeah,
subconscious level, they're experiencing pain because they don't want to go to work, right? It's not necessarily doing it consciously. It can be running in the background in the subconscious, which, our friend Dr. Bruce Lipton would suggest that, the subconscious mind is a million times more powerful than the conscious mind. Um, People often have a reason why they're in pain, but they often don't know what that reason is because it's often subconscious as well. But
yeah,
obviously, what anyone needs to do though is what you've already said: is do as much as you can at the conscious level. So diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. Um, but if they're still struggling, that might be, so one of the beauties I really like about the check system is that, we teach check students to, learn as much as they can, but also know where their limits are. And if there's a situation that's outside of their scope of expertise, have a team of people around you that you can refer to. You know, Quite often, as check practitioners, we might refer to an FDN as an example, right?
yeah,
So, someone comes to see us and, they've got fatigue, night sweats, they're grinding their teeth, they've got um, extreme weight loss. That might be a good person to refer out to an FDN practitioner, right? Because what have I just described? Someone,
metabolic chaos.
someone almost certainly with a parasite, right?
Yeah, yeah, so we don't like to jump to conclusions, we investigate first, um, and I try not to use the sounds like method, but so often we're actually trained to use the sounds like method. Physicians definitely are. You go in there with a set of complaints. And sometimes it's a cluster of symptoms, not just one symptom. You're tired, fatigued, your hair's thinning, your skin is thinning, you're constipated, and you're sad. Well, that sounds like thyroid. It sounds like thyroid. So, low thyroid, So that person would run a test,
Mm.
And then I always tell them, don't hurt your wrist patting yourself on the back. Because, you might have found low thyroid, there it is, low, your T3 and T4 are low, well, you didn't really find their problem, you found the result of their problem. All of this different types of stressors and things going on in their life has resulted in a thyroid that's underproducing, that could actually be an adaptive response. That could be a survival mechanism in play because they're slowing their metabolism down. The body does it on purpose because of the stresses. So, yep, it's low thyroid. And what do you do? Well, here's your thyroid medication. Just take this, come back in 3 months, and we'll check the results again. And they quite actually brought the levels up, and the paper's fine. The paper's fine now. My job's done, right? No, that person still has whatever was causing the low thyroid results in the first place. So we never use sounds like thyroid, sounds like a parasite, sounds like this. We run the labs and don't assume anything and correlate the results with that person. And it very often will explain exactly why. And more often than not, that's why we're considered successful. More often than not, you do identify causal factors. We're sorting out the metabolic chaos, all the imbalances, hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system balance. So people just stay in that sympathetic state and they're never going to heal, thoroughly and completely if they don't learn to get into the parasympathetic and stimulate the weak side of these imbalances. So I was going to throw in a quick story about this as far as pain goes. Um, I had a buddy in high school. His nickname at the time was the Weasel, and I'm not kidding. And he would people would call him Weasel, and he'd say, "No, it's the Weasel." I don't really get the distinction, but I'm just telling you, this guy was a character. He ended up hurting his back and getting addicted to the medication. So the reason he wouldn't get out of pain is because he loved the medication, the the uh, the remedy or that he was going to. This guy ended up having back surgery, and I know he didn't need it. I don't think he needed it. My impression. He wanted the medication. He wanted the pain meds. He'd go to 3 different doctors to get pain meds. Uh, and everything else was hurting him too. Now he ended up dying, of an overdose uh, at about 50. He was my friend for 35 years or something until he died. But um, there's a lot of reasons someone might not get out of pain, and you got to look at them all. And it's again, as you uncover these obstacles to healing, uh, you're peeling away all of the reasons they're not getting better until you actually can maybe zero in on some very localized area. Uh, but it's a process. It's not, you can't guess either. It's like you run the labs, you work with someone on their dress program, trying to help them with consistency and adherence to a narrower path. Some people just don't. Nope, I'm not doing it. Um, so they're never gonna really get there. I had a
Yeah.
lady once just at this long time ago. Um, she came in the office to get her report of findings. And I might add, nowadays we don't need an office. You can work from home like I'm doing now. But back then she came in the office. She had her husband with her. She was an older lady. Um, and I said, I was sat down to go over her test results, and she was sweating. And she had a little like napkin or something in her hands. She's wringing her hands doing this, and she's almost in tears. And I said, "You okay? Like what's going on?" She goes, "I wanna hear what you have to say, but I just don't want you to take my ice cream away from me." Everything I mean, she probably would have jumped through rings of fire, but she just as long as I didn't take her ice cream away, she was eating a bowlful before bed every night, and it was like that was her blanket, that was her comfort. So, she's not gonna heal pain or whatever else, because she wouldn't walk the narrow path, and I lost her I said, "Well, yeah, I am. You can't let you do that." Okay, I'm out of here."
Mm.
"Okay, sorry."
Yeah. Yeah.
It hurts
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, for someone to be helped, they need to want to be helped, right? You can't help
Yeah,
someone that doesn't want to help.
yeah, yeah. Well, even though she paid me a lot of money to run the labs, it didn't matter if it, you were asking really good questions.
Yeah, I mean, in that example of the ice cream, uh, Paul Chek suggests that his definition of an addiction is a repeated activity that doesn't bring you the result that you want. So it sounds like she had an addiction to ice cream.
She was addicted to the there's a type of dopamine that or endorphin. It's a type of endorphin that comes from things that are bad for you. Your body tries to protect you, and it'll produce a little chemical that tries to anesthetize you, basically, and it feels good. Well, they call these things mood food, and so her, among other things, she was very sensitive to casein, which is the protein in dairy. So she would get this. It's called caseomorphin. Every time she ate it, and it would give her a little buzz, just a little buzz, enough to fall asleep and think life is not so bad, and whatever. So yeah. So Paul's right. Um, and it's what I ended up working into my intake process, because onboarding is very, very important. You have to onboard correctly, or you'll end up with clients that you wish you hadn't taken on. And so, one of the questions is there anything that would stop you from completing a program with me? If I decide to take you on as a client, if is there anything that would stop you? And most people don't. They go, no, I don't think so. And I go, well, let me give you some examples: money, um, time, addictions. I always cover money, time, and addictions because those things could hold you back. So if any of that's going to hold you back, tell me now. Don't wait till we're 2 months into a program and I find out you have an addiction to something that's counterproductive, or that you're going to, I don't want to say run out of money because I get paid up front, but that you have these issues, especially around the time. Some people just won't spend the time to prepare meals properly, or go to the gym, or whatever it might be. And so we always, now after that lady, I put, do you have any addictions? I need to know now.
Mm,
And I won't take you on as a client, maybe, just save your money.
mm. Yeah, moving on from that, although this is kind of linked in part to what you were saying, going back to the new dietary guidelines, would it be possible, in your view, for people to be eating the recommended foods but still have triggers for pain in certain individuals?
I think so. The testing we do, it covers a lot of that because we use a very unique test called the mediator release test, where it's available, and it's not available around the planet yet. But I've been using it for 25 years here in the States. It actually measures, when your blood is exposed to this element. It could be carrots, and it could be crackers, and it could be beef or pork, or so. We do 176 foods now. No one eats that many foods. You probably eat 25 or 30 foods, but it covers a lot of ground. So we test, and that they're actually measuring, exposing the blood to the element and seeing what happens to the blood cells. And they will, if you're sensitive to it, release elements like, that are inflammatory, or very counterproductive. The prostaglandins and granulocytes and things that invoke inflammation, which could then go anywhere in your body. It could prevent healing of a wound. It could be causing migraines. There's just no limit to what these mediators can do to you. They're all bad. and so we measure. Now, can you miss? Well, then it's only 176 foods. You can't get every food on the test, even though some of them are in groups. So you assume anything else in that group might also be inflammatory. So absolutely the food testing. Am I answering your question or am I
Yeah, yeah.
dancing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so absolutely foods can be they're preventing you. Remember, our job is to identify and remove obstacles to healing. Food's a big one.
Mm. And
But you start out with the food pyramid. Remember, we're eliminating the seed oils and inflammatory fats, focusing more on your good proteins and good fats, which happen to be saturated. Sorry, everyone who thinks that those are bad. They're not. You can't overeat them, but you could certainly eat a lot of them. They're anti-inflammatory, and so eating right is huge.
mm, yeah, just moving on from that. Um, yes, eating is definitely huge, but how important is it to look at pain through a wider functional lens rather than just asking, what should I eat?
Yeah, sure. To me, pain is going to continuously stimulate um, your cortisol, which an excess of which will start to put you in the catabolic state where your body's breaking down all over the place. When you're catabolic in a catabolic state or dominance, you're never going to always be there, but you're going to throw your sex hormones off. There's reason like take a young woman who's having regular cycles, menstrual cycles, and then she has an accident. And all of a sudden it throws her. How's that throwing her hormones off? How does that work? Well, there's connections, and if she doesn't resolve the pain, she's gonna maybe always have a bad time around menses, or completely stop menses, or all kinds of things happen with fertility, stuff like that. So pain affects your entire physiology. Again, I think it starts because pain is a form of stress. Stress raises cortisol. Cortisol makes you catabolic, and a catabolic to anabolic imbalance starts a whole chain of events. The sex hormones are the first thing that comes to my mind, actually. Your estrogen and progesterone goes off, and it affects your testosterone levels as well. So less testosterone. What do you think? You need testosterone to help recover and stay in balance. So
Mm,
yeah, big. The next domino to fall with this pain cortisol connection is the immune system. So there's a element in your gut that you need very badly. It's called secretory IgA. So it's an immunoglobulin that's secreted in the gut. Everyone here probably has heard that most of your immune system's in the gut. And so the way the downward spiral is pain. That's a form of stress, cortisol, catabolic, sex hormones are going out of balance. Next thing's going to be that gut. You're going to lose your secretory IgA. Levels will go down. Well, then what? That's your protection against the overgrowth of bad bacteria. And we all have some bad bacteria. That's a good thing because it keeps your immune system hovering. But you just want it to hover. You don't want it to dominate. And so you'll get what's called a dysbiosis. That's too much bad to good. And I could continue with this domino effect. So pain, cortisol imbalance. Now you've got the immune system is not as good as it used to be. You've got a dysbiosis, too much bad bacteria. Well, guess what? That has its own set of problems because when you have a few bad guys in the neighborhood, more bad guys like to show up. And sometimes they're worse. So you can go from a simple dysbiosis to parasites, real bacterial overgrowth, and funguses and viruses and things they just have their way with you. Why? Pain, cortisol imbalances, stress, the stress response. It's a cascade. and it goes right through to not only now I do have indigestion, bloating, heartburn, gas, diarrhea, constipation, or the famous alternating diarrhea and constipation. You've now got worse bugs and LP, lipopoly, all kinds of things happen chemically in your body. And it just gets worse from there. You end up with leaky gut. And now you've got a congested liver. Now you're not detoxifying properly. Your skin gets bad. You get overweight. You get sad and end up pretty miserable. So pain could be the cause of all your downward spiraling if you let it.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle, isn't it? A common myth I still hear, even from professionals, is that diet has nothing to do with chronic pain. And that's simply not true. Your gut and your immune system influence inflammation, hormones, energy, and yes, pain. If you're eating foods that drive inflammation, it's almost impossible to feel better long term. The pain-free plate gives you 7 foods that help settle your system and support lasting relief. You can download it at bodycheck.co.uk. That's bodycheck.co.uk/pain-free-plate. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
It is. It is. It's why we don't like pain. But we know we don't like pain is a signal something's wrong, and that you should do something about it. Problem is, we learn to live with pain. We get told it's normal. I recall having I got a whiplash, and for a year said, "Well, it'll heal. It'll heal. It'll heal," and stayed in pain for a long time because I'm a tough guy, right? I can handle it. It'll go away, and it just didn't go away till I started getting some therapy. I needed some traction and some things to heal. I was already eating well and stuff, but you got to take these things seriously. We care more about our cars, men. And if your car's bad, you fix it immediately. If you get an owie, ignore it for a while.
Mm, yeah, yeah. So, for someone living with chronic pain who feels stuck and perhaps frustrated that they're doing all the right things in inverted commas, what would be the first thing that you would encourage them to look at differently from what they're currently doing?
Yeah, I would, I guess, suggest that you take as holistic an approach as possible. That might sound a little goofy, but it's not just that you have injured yourself. I mean, if you're in a car accident, you're pretty much going to go to the doctor and make sure that the bones are back where they're supposed to be, and follow through on a lot of their stuff. I would kind of probably avoid the pain meds as much as I could because I like those signals. Signals are good for you. So if you just look, if you gotta, you gotta. I've done some things. The first time I got my hip uh, pro the PRP, no, it was the stem cells. First of all, they went in my ass, into my hip bone to draw marrow out of the bone. And then they spun that down to get the stem cells. And they did all this a couple times, but man, did that hurt. I mean, I was in pain. I had to take something just for one night. One night. They gave me enough for a week. That's all I need. And you got to do that. Um, and start healing, start nurturing, again, feeding those tissues, those cells and things, and resting them properly. And then you got to stay active, um, uh, Dr. Motion, right? Isn't it
That's a movement.
Dr. Movement? Yeah, so you got to do all this stuff, Dr. Diet, Dr. Movement, and Dr.
Dr.
Sleep.
Dr.
Yeah,
Quiet, Dr.
Dr.
Happiness.
Quiet. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I forget sometimes,
You're
but
pretty much there.
we call it dress, and it's all true. It's all true. So you nurture. FDN, I always thought, because people would ask me, well, how come we don't do any diagnosis, but you have that big D, diagnostic nutrition? And it was, so I've sometimes call it foundational, data driven nurturing, foundational data-driven nurturing. And, that nurturing, it comes in all forms and ways. We do it through the DRESS program. But while you remove the contributors to the continuous metabolic chaos, like you stopped playing tennis. That must have been hard. I know how much you love tennis and how good you are at it. And you're very competitive, so, man, that must have hurt for a while, but you
Mm,
had to because you wanted
yeah,
to give it time to heal.
yeah.
And that's the other thing about our work is it always takes time. So I'm not sure I'm addressing as specifically as you want, but, um, there's lots you can do. And
Mm,
so the first thing is take it seriously, like, don't wait. That would be my first suggestion. When I got in that car accident, I knew I'd hurt myself. I was actually sitting in the back seat, and we're on a mountain road, and someone just slammed into us, and, I went, "Pow," and I felt it, and I felt the tension, it'll go away. Should never have done that. Shoulda immediately gone and got checked out.
mm, yeah, good advice. So, what do you see as the biggest misconception people have when it comes to the relationship between pain and nutrition?
Well, listen, even doctors don't get the connection between eating and getting all of the nutrition, which I've mentioned twice now, the vitamins, minerals, and so the long list of things that you're designed to ingest and assimilate. And they just don't make the connection. I think that's the biggest mistake is, well, what does eating have to do with the car accident I was in? Well, nothing except for that if you want to heal, you, that's when the connection comes in. So we can't reverse the car accident or sports injury, whatever it is. Look, I've had plenty, and I try to walk the talk, which is pay attention and not ignore these things. I had also told a story where I was ignoring it. That's bad. That's hypocritical.
Mm, yeah.
So don't ignore it. Go get checked out by a good matter of fact, in my lessons, when we get to the, exercise part, I highly emphasize getting checked out, no pun intended, CHEKKED, checked, get checked out by a techie who knows how to assess the body because 'cause they've been trained by one of the best in the business.
Mm, absolutely. So, before we wrap up, Reed, is there anything else you want to share with the audience today?
Well, just how much, um, it matters to get up every day and have a purpose in life. And, because you don't have to think about what to do, and you never get depressed. You might get sad about a certain event, someone dies, whatever, but, you can stay happy if you stay on purpose. It's been my solution. So I mean, even when I was in environmental law, I had a purpose. I was saving the whole planet. Got a little discouraging because 'cause you're up against some big competition that don't care about it. But when I switched to working with people, like, helping others and getting paid well for it, it's very rewarding work. Let me tell you one quick story. How would you feel if I could tell you so many stories? I don't even know which one to pick. But, one of my favorites is a lady was coming in our office for pain. She, had hurt herself in the gym, neck, back, or it was, and she was on about her 4th or 5th visit seeing the chiropractor. And I was a trained body worker. I did, structural integration in addition to when I was in the gym. I don't do it anymore. When I was in the office. Um, and so I would walking her back to the treatment room where I would do some myofascial work on her neck and shoulders and then put a heat pack on her. And then the doctor would come in after about 5 minutes and do the adjusting work that chiropractors here do. And so that was a great routine for her. But one day she was really sad looking. Said, "Hey," first name, "what's wrong?" "Oh, Reed, it's this weight, you could look at me, I'm 40 pounds overweight and I'm just so frustrated because it's this medication I'm taking for the hives. And, I'm thinking, I could help with that, but she finished her story out and it went like this. I've been on medication for the hives for 2 years and I've gained 40 pounds. And I'm so frustrated because when I asked the doctor on the last visit, you know, told him how frustrating it was, he told me, "Lady, you can be fat or you can have the hives." And when she said, "Well, doctor, that's very depressing," he said, "I'll be happy to write your prescription for antidepressants." And I shouldn't be laughing, but now I knew why she looked so sad that day. She'd just been told, "There's nothing you can do. You're going to be fat. And if you don't like it that much, I'll give a prescription to make you stupid too." And so I said, finally, "Well, what if we found out why you get the hives?" She goes, "What? What?" Her head snapped around so hard. I thought, "Oh, you're not going to need your adjustment today." And and so what? What? Long story short, ran some tests, found out some things she's very sensitive to, got those out of her diet and environment. There's always chemicals and foods. We look at them both together. And within 9 days, she told me this. 9 days later, Reed, I called my doctor and said, "Doctor, I'm not taking your medication anymore because I found out why I get the hives." And it went on to be very rewarding, lost all the weight, the story. So, that's made her feel great, but it made me feel really great. That was early on when again, I'll say I didn't know what I was doing, but I was on the right track. And I have so many stories like that where we just ran the labs, is narrower path, results are phenomenal, fantastic. And so, oh, by the way, she resolved her neck, and back pain as well eventually, so it's all good. And, just get up every day with a purpose in life and you ought to be happy.
Yeah, good advice. What's next for you, Reed?
Hey, we're always adding new advanced courses to the program, recruiting new people for the program. The thing I'm working on right now is some updates because you have to keep your stuff relevant. And the lab I originally taught, biohealth laboratories, remember, they're not even in business anymore. The died, and his wife didn't want to, whatever. So we find new labs, and those labs are even better. They're fantastic, and but they change things. The labs are a regulated business, so we have to ebb and flow with with the um, with the science the way it is. New discoveries, you know, um, and it's all exciting, good work. But it keeps me busy, keeps me off the water. Yeah, I moved to Florida last year, and I joined a boat club, so I'm trying to get out, do a little more boating and walk the talk. I tell other people, stress reduction, you gotta have Mr. Quiet, go out there on the boat. I go by myself on the ocean. It's so exciting. It's a little frightening sometimes, but I'm learning my way. I'm advancing my training. I go for pretty soon I'll actually have a captain's license at one point, be able to take people out deep sea fishing and stuff. It's very exciting. So that's on a personal side. Business side, it's keep everything updated and fresh and um, get people out there working, doing the work. Nothing makes me happier than for an FDN graduate like you to be successful like you. Well, I commend you, Lee, for helping complete the mission.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Where can people find you online? Where do you want to send people?
Let's see. I think we're going with a we have let me see if I have a special URL. Yeah, let's have them go to fdntraining.com/pain. That sounds bad. But I could make that URL up real quick and have people go there. If you can put it in the show notes whenever
Yeah,
this.
it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
So we'll add
awesome.
it to the show notes. And
Yeah,
we'll have a special URL. I'll give your listeners a free gift of some sort, probably a little booklet on the dress program, or maybe a window into the labs or something as a free gift if they go to that. So yeah, fdntraining.com/pain.
awesome. Great stuff. Reed, it's always great talking to you.
You too, man.
I'll probably have
Been
to
too long.
get you back on as well at some point, but so you can share
Okay.
your worldly wisdom with the audience.
And you too, brother.
Awesome. Great stuff. So that's all from Reed and me for this week, but be sure to tune in same time, same place next week on Beyond the Pain. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Pain. If this episode resonated, please follow the show, leave a review, or share it with someone you know who's been struggling. And remember, pain is not permanent. With the right insight and support, you can turn it into power. Until next time, stay open, stay strong, and keep moving beyond the pain.